The human mind is a landscape of perception, memory, and emotion. But what happens when that landscape is systematically distorted? When the person you trust most becomes the architect of your confusion? Meet Sarah. On the surface, she's a successful professional, a caring mother, a devoted wife. But beneath that carefully maintained exterior lies a world of doubt and silent anguish. For months, Sarah has felt a growing unease. Little things at first: unexplained late nights at the office, a sudden password change on her husband David's phone, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume. Then bigger things: lipstick on a collar, mysterious hotel charges, hushed phone conversations that abruptly end when she enters the room. Her mind, once a trusted ally, becomes a battlefield. One part screams that something is terribly wrong. The other, shaped by years of subtle manipulation, whispers that she's being paranoid, that she should trust her husband, that she's not seeing things clearly. This is the insidious nature of gaslighting. It doesn't just challenge your perceptions, it rewrites your reality. One evening, Sarah finds in black and white evidence of a long-standing affair. With trembling hands, she confronts David. But what follows isn't the confession or remorse she expected. Instead, she finds herself in the eye of a psychological storm. The air in the room seems to thicken as Sarah utters those fateful words, "I know about the affair." She's imagined David's face crumpling with guilt, a flood of apologies, perhaps even relief at finally being discovered. But reality proves to be a cruel subversion of her expectations. David's face remains impassive, a mask of confused innocence that sends a chill down Sarah's spine. "What are you talking about?" His voice maddeningly calm. In this moment, Sarah's entire nervous system goes into overdrive. Her heart pounds so hard she can feel it in her throat, her palms grow clammy, and a cold sweat breaks out across her skin. It's as if her body is screaming what her mind is struggling to accept, that she's in danger, not from physical threat, but from an assault on her very reality. Before her yawns a chasm of uncertainty, a world where up is down, where her most fundamental understanding of reality is called into question. As David begins to speak, his words seem to alter the very fabric of Sarah's reality. Each denial, each counter-accusation, each expression of concern for her mental state is like a hammer blow to the edifice of her certainty. "You're imagining things," he says, his voice a mixture of patience and exasperation. "I think all this stress at work is getting to you." Sarah feels her resolve beginning to crumble. The email she read, the lipstick she found, all of it begins to feel hazy, dreamlike. Did she really see what she thought she saw? Could she have misinterpreted innocent situations? As David's denials continue, Sarah feels her resolve beginning to crumble. Paradoxically, this is her nervous system's desperate attempt at self-preservation. In the face of overwhelming psychological threat, her brain initiates a protective response akin to dissociation. The email she read, the lipstick she found, all of it begins to feel hazy, dreamlike. This fog descending on her memories isn't a weakness, but a primal defense mechanism. Her nervous system, sensing the acute stress of cognitive dissonance, responds by dulling the sharp edges of her certainty. It's as if her brain is saying, "If these memories are true, your entire world is unsafe. Let's blur them just in case." The question, did she really see what she thought she saw, isn't mere self-doubt, but her mind creating an escape route from an unbearable reality. This haze, this sudden uncertainty, is her psyche's airbag deploying in the face of emotional collision. By allowing the possibility that she could have misinterpreted innocent situations, her brain is attempting to maintain her fundamental sense of safety and trust in her relationship, even at the cost of trusting herself. In this moment, Sarah isn't just a victim of gaslighting, but caught in an internal war between her need for truth and her instinct for psychological survival. Her nervous system, in its misguided attempt to protect her, becomes an unwitting ally to David's manipulation. This is the insidious power of gaslighting at its peak. It doesn't just challenge the victim's perception of a single event, it undermines their faith in their ability to perceive reality accurately at all. In this psychological storm, Sarah's very sense of self begins to dissolve. She finds herself grasping for solid ground, but every attempt to assert her reality is met with a counter-narrative that seems increasingly plausible. David's concern for her mental health, his patient explanations for each piece of evidence she presents. All of it combines to create a vortex of doubt that threatens to swallow her. In this moment, Sarah experiences what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, a state of mental discomfort caused by holding two conflicting beliefs simultaneously. One part of her mind clings desperately to what she knows she saw, while another part begins to accept David's alternative reality. The human mind, faced with such dissonance, often chooses the path of least resistance. Accepting David's reality would mean preserving her marriage, avoiding conflict, and escaping the painful truth of betrayal. Clinging to her own perceptions means facing a shattered relationship and confronting the fact that the person she trusted most has deeply betrayed her. This confrontation, which she had hoped would be a moment of truth and resolution, instead becomes the crucible in which her self-trust and identity are tested to their very limits. In this psychological maelstrom, Sarah stands at a crossroads. Will she find the strength to hold on to her truth, or will she allow David's reality to supersede her own? The answer to this question will shape not just the future of her relationship, but her very sense of self. This is the cruel genius of gaslighting. It doesn't just deny reality, it inverts it. The victim becomes the villain, the abuser, the concerned partner. But why doesn't Sarah stand her ground? Why, despite the proof she holds, does she find herself retreating, apologizing, doubting? The answer lies in the complex psychology of people-pleasing. For Sarah, like many caught in this dynamic, conflict avoidance isn't just a preference, it's a deeply ingrained survival strategy. Perhaps Sarah grew up in a household where keeping the peace was paramount. Maybe she learned early that her own needs and perceptions were less important than maintaining harmony. Or perhaps years of subtle undermining in her marriage have eroded her self-trust to the point where David's reality feels more solid than her own. People-pleasing, at its core, is about safety. It's the belief, often unconscious, that if we can just make everyone around us happy, if we can avoid rocking the boat at all costs, we'll be safe, we'll be loved, we'll be worthy. But in the face of gaslighting, this instinct becomes a trap. The more Sarah retreats, the more David's version of reality solidifies. Her silence becomes complicity in her own gaslighting. This dynamic creates a psychological prison. Sarah's proof of David's infidelity sits heavy in her mind, but she finds herself unable to act on it. The cognitive dissonance, the gap between what she knows and what she feels able to acknowledge, grows wider by the day. The tragedy is that Sarah's people-pleasing, her desire to keep her family intact, her fear of conflict, all these impulses come from a place of love and hope. But in this toxic dynamic, these virtues become weapons used against her. Breaking free from this cycle is not just about recognizing the gaslighting. It's about deep, often painful self-reflection. It's about excavating the roots of people-pleasing behavior, about learning that setting boundaries and standing in your truth is not just okay. It's essential. The dance of gaslighting and people-pleasing can feel like an inescapable cycle, but there is hope. If you recognize yourself in Sarah's story, remember this: your truth, your reality, is valid and deserves to be honored. If your partner diminishes your reality in any way, especially over an extended period, it's crucial to seek help. This isn't a sign of weakness, it's an act of self-preservation and courage. Choose one person to confide in, preferably a therapist or counselor trained in dealing with emotional abuse and manipulation. They can provide the objective perspective that's so often lost when you're in the thick of a gaslighting situation. Remember, it's incredibly challenging to see the bigger picture from the inside. A skilled therapist can help you navigate the fog of doubt and reclaim your sense of reality. It's also important to understand that there may be people around you, friends, family, coworkers, who have noticed something amiss but are unsure how to proceed. They may be grappling with the dilemma of whether to speak up or stay silent, fearing they might be overstepping or misreading the situation. To those bystanders, we say, trust your instincts. If you're concerned about someone you care about, find a way to reach out. Sometimes a simple "I'm here if you need to talk" can be a lifeline to someone trapped in a gaslighting situation. If you're watching this and feeling overwhelmed, know that support is available. There are hotlines, support groups, and professionals ready to help you navigate this challenging journey. You don't have to figure this out alone. take that first step. Reach out. Speak your truth. Your future self will thank you for your courage. Remember, the path to healing starts with a single brave step. You've already begun by recognizing your situation. Now, let's walk the path to recovery together.